Will the Pittsburgh Steelers actually move on from Mike Tomlin? Whenever teams, are in a bit of a rut, maybe plateaued, not having success, one of the first changes and easiest changes for a GM to do is typically fire the head coach. But Mike Tomlin is definitely a different conversation, a definitely different situation altogether compared to your, regular NFL coach who gets fired on Black Monday. Tomlin is the author of 17 straight non-losing seasons, which included a Super Bowl at the very beginning. But Tomlin he seems to get more out of his team than what you would expect on paper. If you're going into that game where Pittsburgh's a 3-point dog, I feel like Tomlin wins that game more times than not. The stability that Pittsburgh has had for all these seasons under Mike Tomlin cannot be taken for granted. Look at the New York Jets. They would kill for that type of stability, kill for having their team actually prepared to play on a day in, day out business. Mike Tomlin would be a very, very high in demand coach if the Steelers were to actually let him go. Now, saying that, the Steelers haven't had a lot of playoff success, since, 2018. They had a streak of, 4 straight playoff appearances. Then they missed twice. They had a good year in 2020, record-wise, but lost in the wild card. Lost in the wild card next year, and now 2 more straight missing of the playoffs. To me, the biggest reason for a lot of this is, and it's with any NFL team, it's quarterback play. You really need a quarterback to have sustained success. And those last few years where Tomlin's playoff success starts to, waver, he's running out the husk of Ben Roethlisberger going into these last 2 years with Kenny Pickett. It is just hard to maintain the consistency of winning with mediocre to bad quarterback play, no matter how good your defense is, your running game, your lines. Yes, there have been outliers of teams that have done it. Rex Ryan, first 2 years with the Jets, a Baltimore Super Bowl, Tampa Super Bowl. They happen, but it is hard to do it consistently. Who's at fault for Pittsburgh's, recent woes, so to speak, even though they are finishing above 500? You could argue they're not getting those high draft picks because Tomlin's always finishing above 500. But they haven't really had, that type of talent lately on the roster, especially at the quarterback position. You probably got to give Kenny Pickett maybe another season or two to see what he has. You're asking for another 2 years of 9-8. So would you fire Tomlin to change the message, bring in a new scheme, bring in a new philosophy, extra motivation to the guys? An example I always like to look at from another sport would be the Toronto Raptors. Dwayne Casey came in and he took over a Raptors team that finished 22-66. His first year, 23-43, not much better. Then he was 34-48, and then Casey ran off 5 straight playoff appearances, and been the first time the Raptors were in the playoffs for a while. But he ran up against the buzzsaw that was LeBron James. And they kept getting, to the second round, third round of the playoffs, and they just could not go any further. In his final year, Dwayne Casey went 59-23, the best record for a Toronto Raptors regular season. He won Coach of the Year. And guess what? He got fired. They had to change the messaging. Doing the same thing over and over again was not working, and they had to change things up. Nick Nurse comes in the next year, and they win the finals. And it's not just simply the coach change that easy. They went out and acquired Kawhi Leonard. Let's just say he's your quarterback, right? They made not only the coaching change, but they also made the giant personnel move, and it paid dividends for them. If they don't go out and acquire Kawhi, does Nick Nurse have the success that he had? Does he have the reputation he got from winning that title? Yes, Nick Nurse pulled down a Coach of the Year as well. When he did not have Kawhi, and they did have some really competitive teams, but the personnel was a huge part of the Raptors changing that narrative. Also with LeBron James leaving the East too, that always helps. Every coaching situation is quite different. Yes, you could argue that Tomlin's messaging and platform, he's definitely plateaued. Team's not getting it, but at the same time, Tomlin had a quarterback. Would things be looking a little bit different? Another good example, look at the Buffalo Bills. Look at the Buffalo Bills. They hadn't been into the playoffs in ages, forever. They bring in Sean McDermott, go to the playoffs the first year. Then they miss, and then playoffs 4 straight years after that. But with McDermott, he has the quarterback. He's got Josh Allen. Yeah, he had Tyrod Taylor's first year. That was a good coaching job. But then he got Josh Allen, and then they developed Josh Allen. Now Buffalo and a lot of the media have higher expectations for Buffalo. It's been pretty much Super Bowl or bust the last few years. And Sean McDermott, let's see what he does this season. They're making the playoffs. Let's see what they can do. But if they come up short again, like if they don't get to at least the AFC Championship game, you can make a very strong case McDermott should be out. New England's another unique case with Bill Belichick. I think as much as Bill Belichick has tormented me emotionally through all these years with his destruction of the Jets, I think Bill should be able to do whatever the hell he wants. That was hell of a run he gave you. I feel like fans take those Super Bowls for granted because I'm looking at the Jets trophy case. There's one in there. It was well before I was ever born, and I don't feel any sort of fan appreciation or ownership for the Joe Namath Super Bowl III title at all. It doesn't click with me. I wasn't alive for it. I didn't celebrate those teams, watch those teams. Bill gave you Boston fans everything. And if Bill wants to, and Bill should be able to go out on his own terms. He wants to stay in. You guys are going to get out a high draft pick here. He wants to stay in, get a new quarterback, and try to build this thing up again. Bill should be allowed to do that. Running Bill out of town seems the most craziest thing to me unless he actually wants to leave. And if he does, you let him go and you thank him. So getting back to Tomlin, if they're just running it back with Kenny Pickett, Tomlin's your guy. He's your guy. Get in and maybe a new offensive coordinator, whatever you got to do to have a new voice in the offense. But Tomlin's your guy to keep that team together through the tough times. You don't want a rookie. Look at the Jets. You don't want rookie coaches in there when the going gets tough. Everything falls apart. People start snitching on each other. Leaks everywhere. It's not a good scene. Tomlin's your guy. But if you're going to hit the reset button, trade your assets, bring in a new quarterback, whatever it is you're going to do, you're going to blow it up, then yeah, maybe that's the time you make the move for a new coach and let Tomlin go elsewhere. But y'all are crazy if you're going to run the same thing back and get rid of Mike Tomlin.